Welcome to Push Go, a podcast presented by Plum, where we highlight the defining moments that impact how we live and work. Today, I'm joined by Marisa Hoover. She's the Client Solutions Manager at Field Agent. Marisa graduated from Appalachian State University in 2017, moved from the Carolinas to Arkansas after graduation to get her MBA from John Brown University. Afterwards, she spent several years serving a leadership development company before joining the Field Agent team just over 3 years ago. Today, you'll hear how an unexpected diagnosis at 21 redefined the framework Marisa had in place for her future. Marisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
It's exciting having you here today.
Excited to be here.
Oh, great, great. Hey, let's go way back. Can we go way back? And as a kid, where was childhood for you? Where'd you grow up?
So I say for the most part, I grew up in North Carolina. Born in California, lived in Nevada for a few years. It is Nevada, not Nevada, I'll say that.
Appalachia?
Yes, I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains. So I'm from, I say Asheville, North Carolina. That's where I spent the majority of my life growing up.
And as you know, absolutely gorgeous, especially, in the fall.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, with the leaves and everything changing.
Yes, it's picturesque. It's definitely God's country out there, and just get out there and visit for sure.
Yeah. And so you say kind of the California, you ended up there. So is family still there? Did everyone kind of migrate somewhere else, or was that?
Yes, so majority of my family's in Southern California. I've got family now in Arkansas that lived in North Carolina. So kind of all over the place, roots in a lot of different areas of the nation. So keeps us exploring. So as
a kid growing up, did you think that this was Carolina and kind of that southeast, southeast? Was that going to be home for you? Or did you grow up thinking, I'm going to get out of here as soon as I can?
Carolina was home.
Wow.
Through and through, I wasn't born, but I was bred in Carolina,
I like that.
So that's where I wanted to be, for sure. That was home.
That was home. Yeah, I tell people that I was born in Maryland, but I can't say I was born and raised in Kentucky. And it's just so frustrating because all my friends are like, oh, I'm a native, but I was raised here, but... And it's hard to say that.
Yeah, there's a different ring to, California born, Carolina bred. It's just, it's different.
It's
so
not quite there. That's good. So high school, growing up, did you have an idea of exactly what you wanted to be when you were going to grow up? Or was this one of those, I'm going to hit college and see where life takes me?
So I didn't know exactly, but I knew I wanted to be in business. I knew I wanted to be a businesswoman in a position of influence.
So speak to that a little bit, because that's not every 15, 17, 18-year-old person's thought.
No.
Whether you're a guy or a girl, that's hard to. So what got you to say, yeah, I know that's where I want to be? Was this a lemonade stand? Was this an influential person?
Well, I was able to really sit at the business table kind of growing up, which was the dinner table for me with my dad. And so... Yeah. I was able to see, this is a cool industry to be in. The people that you get to interact with, you have an opportunity to influence people, to make a change. And so I knew I wanted to be in business. Now, I didn't know exactly how. I didn't say this is the exact industry I want to be in. This is exactly the job I want. But I knew I wanted to be in that industry. So when I went into college, I wasn't just undecided, waiting. I'm a business major. I think I could do anything with that, but there's going to be a plan for sure.
Wow. So many people, you hear the stats or the encouragement of sitting around the dinner table as a child growing up or with your kids. And so as a 16, 17-year-old, you kind of inferred, hey, around the dinner table with my dad, I got that. So was it just through osmosis, or did you have like literal conversations about, hey, if I'm in business one day, or what do you think? How did that interchange go?
Yeah, well, I remember asking my dad a lot of questions, why does this happen? Or why do people make these decisions? Just kind of what plans come from what? So I would just say that that's just the conversations that we ended up having, and that's just what seemed normal for me.
Okay, so we should all take that in, is that the dinner table matters.
I mean, I'm sure there's other fun things to talk about at the dinner table
but
aside from
that's
business.
okay. That's important. But as I think about you coming in, and so for very few people, we've had a couple of guests on that knew what they wanted to do, and others are like, I just wanted to go to school. So you're coming in, you're gonna hit school. You say, I'm going to be a business major. So at that point in time, you're just kind of hitting on all cylinders. You know exactly. There's not a care in the world. This is Marisa. I am confident. This is what I'm going to do. So when you hit school that freshman year, did that continue to maintain?
Yeah, it was just freedom within a framework. You know, the framework is business, freedom to be carefree, to pursue business and, you know, as my education and to continue to enjoy it. And so that's what it was, you know, throughout college was this is what my plan is and I'm pursuing it.
Wow. So is freedom within a framework your quote? Did you make that up or did you steal that?
I probably stole it.
That's
at some
so
point.
tweetable. That's so. But listen, freedom within a framework that's a life lesson. That's a universal thing, and I'm gonna refer to that like 5 more times while we're talking today.
I probably stole that from someone.
No, we're gonna take it as yours right now.
But I don't remember who.
So freedom within a framework. Your framework is business within school. So you're moving along, freshman, sophomore year. No real changes in your life. You know exactly what you were going to do and how you're going to make that happen. At that point in time, had you had internships or started to do any work like that, or were you still kind of moving along in school? Freshman, sophomore year, kind of moving along. Did you have anything else that influenced you?
Really, it was kind of easy peasy, Rick. It was, you know, I did the typical internships. I went to the classes I was supposed to go to. I followed the path that was set for me, and it was easy.
Wow. And so I can remember those days to some degree, which is so good. But we talk about defining moments here. And you had a defining moment that happened in your life. And so freedom within a framework, your framework is fairly solid. So let's speak to kind of what happened next in your life and how your framework changed a little bit. Why don't you kind of walk us through that point in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. So around 21 years old, I am pursuing business, still in school. I'm really enjoying myself. Everything's just adding up really perfectly. You know, I've got a couple years left of school. I'm going to get an awesome job somewhere. You know, it's all adding up. And at 21, I ended up finding out I had a really aggressive form of skin cancer on my face.
Oh, wow.
And that turned my world upside down. The repercussions and the consequences of that were just, what is the next step? What's the plan? What's, you know, this has to be treated, it has to be taken care of.
So you're 21, living the dream.
Yes.
And is this one of those where you knew, or is this like, hey, I have a spot in, I'll get it checked. What could this be? Was it just that absolute shock?
Just complete and total shock. I mean, to be candid, I went to the dermatologist because I just had this little bump on my face. And
which happens to people
totally
that
normal.
Are younger, right?
Exactly.
I mean, these things happen to us.
And I was going in, I figured they'd give me some cream or something and it would go away within a few days.
Because you have a framework. You have a plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the case. I found out that it was an aggressive form of skin cancer and that I needed to have a surgery pretty quickly in order to remove the cancer so that it didn't get as serious as to needing radiation or chemotherapy.
Oh, wow.
So I was fortunate enough to be early enough in the phases of the cancer that I was not a candidate for those chemotherapy or radiation.
Okay. And many people have had, obviously, situations like this in their life. So how did you process that? Is this Marissa's internal and I'm going to figure this out? Are you Googling everything you could find? Are you going home talking to your parents? Do you have friends? I mean, this obviously is life altering because you have to resolve this now. What did you do to help process that, to figure out what did the new framework for you look like?
Well, honestly, I wasn't really thinking about the framework because it kind of busted.
Yeah. So you blew it up.
Yeah, it blew up. Candidly, I was in complete and total shock. I called my parents, you know, just heartbroken. Everything I researched online was just
not good.
Just not what I wanted. It was all oh yeah, you have a surgery and you'll get it cut out of your face and you'll be fine. But there was nobody my age that had gone through that.
Interesting. What do you mean by that? No one your age?
So everything was, a classic candidate for this surgery was a Vietnam veteran because of all of the time that was spent in the sun in the military. And so they had so much sun exposure that they had the same type of skin cancer that I had on my face. That was a very common candidate, for example. But it's very common in 50, 60, 70.
But no 21-year-old women are.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I remember going into the consultation with the doctor, and my parents kind of looked like the elephant in the room. So I felt like the unicorn in the room. What am I doing? I'm the one that is here. So it was really shocking. I didn't process it really well at all. Just because everything was busted. The world turned upside down. There was no framework. There was no plan. It was, why did this happen to me? I mean, it was the first time in my life that I had an obstacle in front of me and I had no idea how to conquer it. And I knew that behind that obstacle, there were 15 more obstacles. There wasn't an opportunity to figure out, how do I solve this? How do I fix this? When you're 21, most of the things that you've dealt with in your life, you're able to fix. You go through a couple obstacles and it's solved. This was something that was going to be a long journey, and I had never dealt with that before.
Okay, so framework is blown up. You have the reality of, I've got to now focus on me and getting well, and whatever well looks like, because you're early in the journey. So this wasn't a week and you're back in class. Was it 3 months, 6 months? When did you get to a point where you thought, okay, I'm going to get back to some form of, I had to use the word normal, but that's the word that comes to my mind. What did it take to get to that point where you're like, okay, I'm back into some routine?
Yeah. So quickly following the diagnosis, the confirmation that it was cancerous, I got scheduled for a surgery. That surgery is kind of up in the air in the sense of, we don't know how deep the cancer is until we open it up. And so we didn't know what recovery time would be. The estimation based off of the average was, you'll probably have about 7 stitches. That'll be the most that you'll have. We'll get everything taken care of, and the recovery time will likely be just like a couple months, and you'll just have a little scar on your face and it'll heal.
So miss the semester, it'll be okay. I'll go home.
I could go back to school, no problem. Don't even need just
7 stitches. How hard can this be? Because you are a doer, you're a fixer.
Yes.
You're going to get these things accomplished. So you go in thinking one thing. What happened when you came out?
So when I was having the procedure, it turned out that the skin cancer was a lot more aggressive and deeper than what was estimated. I walked out with 70 stitches.
So
70. It had spread and had gotten over a majority of my face, and so the 70 stitches were needed to remove the cancer. So I walked out of that surgery cancer-free, which was a miracle. But I also walked out with 70 stitches. And once again, what I thought my world was turned upside down, it flipped again. Because now the healing process was about a year, 6 months to a year. So it's the
second big explosion. The first one, the framework blows up. Then even some semblance blew up again.
Yes.
So you're not going to go back to school next week.
Not next week.
Not next week. So you had to reframe that. So who did you have come alongside you? How did you help process that? Because as we talk about defining moments here, and you had to kind of push through it, knowing where this has happened with friends in their lives, is that it's hard to do this alone. So how did you process that?
So to be candid, a lot of my processing did not happen until probably a year and a half later.
Wow. Okay. Speak to that.
So I just kind of bulldozed through, Rick. I got back to school and I look different. I have bruises all over my face. I just look different. I had numerous follow-up surgeries that I had to take care of, but I just really focused on school and pouring myself into school. And so I had a really good support system. Okay. My family was there. I had really amazing friends, but I wouldn't say that I really truly started to process what had happened to me until about a year and a half later, because I was just in, how do I get through this?
Okay.
And just pushing through. And I think that a lot of us do that with a lot of problems, is that we just think, how can I bulldoze my way through this? And we don't actually take the time to process. And so as I sit back and reflect, I think I didn't actually start dealing with those issues that I had and that I was really feeling until a year and a half, 2 years later.
Okay, so a year and a half, 2 years later, are you finished with school at that time?
Yes, I've graduated from Appalachian State University.
Okay.
And I got my major in marketing and management. And in that time period where I was just bulldozing through school, school is what I put my head down to focus on. It was the one thing I had control over.
Oh, I like that. So there is some security in having something you could control. And you knew you had that. Okay, I like that. Yeah.
And so I decided, I'm going to get my master's. That will be the next thing.
You can control.
Yes, I can control that. No problem. So I put my head down. I started applying to schools. I wanted to get my MBA. And so that is what ultimately led me to Arkansas, was John Brown University. And so I move out, I leave North Carolina, and I come to Arkansas, and I'm in a new environment. I'm with new people, new faces. And that is when my healing and processing started. Well, healing after the processing, of course, but that is when it really started, I would say. And that's when I had the opportunity to serve on a team at Milestone Leadership, and people came alongside me. And even though they didn't know that they were helping me with the issues that I was dealing with internally from this struggle that I had as a 21-year-old that I was still carrying very heavy on my shoulders, they walked alongside me, and they were helping me more than they knew.
Let's talk about that beginning, because I like that aspect of, again, you've got this defining moment. It's 18 months you're pushing through. But when you came to John Brown, no one knew the Marisa of 3 years ago. No one really knew the Marisa first 3 months of surgery.
No.
They really looked at the Marisa's like, yeah, there might be something there, but they didn't see the 70 stitches. No. So you really had a new kind of beginning, if you will. You kind
clean
of,
slate.
I don't want to do over is not fair, but you had a new beginning.
Absolutely.
So was that refreshing, or is that what helped you a little bit?
I think so. It allowed me to establish myself as, okay, who do I want to be?
Because that was defining you.
Yes, it was this defining piece of me, of everyone in my life. When I, was going through this really tough cancer experience, it was, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Like, well, I'm feeling awful. This is the worst thing I've ever gone through. That was just it became my identity.
Yeah.
And I hated it. And so having the opportunity to relocate to Arkansas, I was able to not change my identity, but to be able to start fresh. And if I wanted to share my story, I could, but it was just a part of my story. It wasn't who I was.
Yeah, I like that. So whether it's someone going through cancer or any other tragedy in their life, whatever it may be, I love that thought of, I'm not running away from something, because it is what it is, but a fresh start, new environment is really not a bad thing. That's really kind of a super healthy thing. All right. So now you've got people around you that know you for who you are, not what happened over here. So how long did it take before you felt like, I'm kind of in my new normal and I'm starting to see my foundation little framework thing begin again? When did you start to feel like I could see the foundation or the framework?
I'd say within 6 months to a year of being in a new place and being at Milestone Leadership as well, just having individuals there walk alongside me. And they didn't even know, some of them knew my story, knew about my cancer. Some didn't. But they were just focused on, how do we build leaders worth following? And the big, vision was what's influencing your heart? Because what's influencing you here in your heart is going to influence your everyday work, your everyday life. And that is more than just the workplace.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, so someone was having coffee with you, Marisa, today and had problem A or B. I love that thought process of, hey, what's in your heart? These things don't define you. Who are you? And find people that look to you as who you are as opposed to the circumstance or baggage or things that are over here. That's really refreshing. It's encouraging.
It's easier for the problems that we experience to be so consuming and become your identity when that's not really what we want. It's just a part of us. It's just an obstacle that we're going through.
Love that. So you've got people pouring into you. You're about 18 months in. Were you finally at the stage where people weren't necessarily asking about the questions? Because, well, can I get a little bit personal here?
Of course.
Yeah, because I could see, if I look hard, I can still see, but it isn't like someone walks in and that's the first thing they see, which 2 years prior to that
was different.
Would have been different. And so are you finding you have to choose to bring that up? I mean, is it getting further and further in the kind of the rearview mirror?
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, that was, 7 years ago now, which is
yeah. Well, you look great.
Crazy.
I mean, it looks great. I mean, it's fantastic.
Well, it's a podcast. So we're good.
That's okay. That's true. You look really good on the podcast.
But no, it's interesting because that was 7 years ago. And so to the people that I interact with every single day, the people that I meet, it doesn't even cross their minds. I mean, even my husband, who I see every single day, he will remind me, I don't even notice it. I don't even know you have that there. Wow. But for me, 7 years later, I see it every single day.
Okay. So how do you process that? So you know it's there.
Yes.
Because you look in the mirror and say, okay, that reminds you of X. Mm-hmm. Is it as simple as I ignore it, or do you have something that you process through or use? How do you kind of get past that? Because it is the first thing you see.
Yes, it is. I mean, and there's good days, there's bad days, there's good moments, there's bad moments. And some days you acknowledge it more. You acknowledge the problem or the trauma that you've been through more. And then other days you kind of blow through it. But for me, I have been really, really trying to just over the years focus on this is a reminder to me of grace, of healing, of mm-hmm. opportunity, of new starts. Something that was so incredibly scarring, like literally and figuratively, mm-hmm. actually changed my life. And so that's not to, silver line everything in the whole situation, but it is to say that a lot of good in my life came out of something that was so ugly.
Wow. So we're going to speak in a second about a little bit of mentorship in there, and we're going to bring up Josh. Can't forget about Josh. But my wife's a cancer survivor.
Yes.
And she read it's just a blog post from John Piper about not wasting your cancer. Mm-hmm. And the premise behind it was, it is what it is. And as much as you want to wish it to go away, the question is whether it's cancer or tragedy or just a bad day, are you going to waste it, or are you going to use that moment, because it's not going to go away?
Exactly.
And use it for good and use it to kind of move on. And so I love that premise. Let's talk about mentorship, because there's like certain person A, we were kind of bantering about Alex and kind of his role. So you had a person kind of pouring into you, and that was as you're going through milestone, finishing up your MBA. So let's talk about the importance of mentorship and someone coming alongside you.
Absolutely. So Alex Cornett, mm-hmm. one of my good friends and mentors, walked alongside me as my leader at Milestone Leadership. And he was such a pivotal part, I think, of my change. And I don't know if he always fully knows that.
He's going to know now, because we're going to tell him.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But, I never even shared my full story with him until, almost probably a year of us working together. But what he was able to do is, like I was talking about earlier, he was so focused on what are the influences that we have in our lives, because that's what's influencing our hearts. That's what's influencing our work every single day. And so mm-hmm. he really challenged me to think very critically, and was such a good mentor in, what is going on in your mind, in your heart, and and don't be afraid to, as he says, be in touch and in tune with the squishy stuff.
Okay.
The stuff that people don't want to talk about.
The non-business stuff. Come on,
Exactly.
You're in business.
Exactly.
Marisa.
You're in business. And as a woman, it's, should I, can it be a man's world? Should I not talk about my feelings? And so it's kind of, he just welcomed all of it and said, we're going to talk about the squishy stuff, the uncomfortable stuff. We're going to talk about it because that's what creates change. And that's what actually is influencing us. And it's not some great strategic plan that's going to change the business. It's the strategic plan that's implemented by the leader that believes in the people, that believes in himself, that believes in the vision of the company and the mission. And so, like we said earlier, that's more than just the business. And so he's teaching me all this. I'm drinking, water from a fire hose at, 23 years old. And he's helping expose me to CPG leaders and all these different people that have been in their industry for 10, 15 years that are dealing with these stressors of, time management and priorities and working with their Walmart buyer and tension here and this and everything. He said, it doesn't matter what walk of life you're in. It doesn't matter what stage of business you're in, what part of your career. You've got to confront the squishy stuff. You've got to be okay with talking about the uncomfortable things and confronting. Figure out what your values are, what's influencing you. If you don't know what your values are, you don't have anything to lose.
Wow, that's great. It's another tweetable by Alex Cornett where you got to be able to address the squishy stuff.
Yes, he said that a lot.
Freedom of the framework of your life. This is really good stuff there. So you're moving along. You're finishing up your MBA milestone. Obviously, you're not only teaching and training others, but you're absorbing, you're learning as you go.
Absolutely.
So where does this Josh guy enter the picture? I mean, does this happen about the time you're graduating, about the time you're finishing up?
So I actually, when I moved from North Carolina and I started fresh, of course, I'm just focusing on school. No boys, just focusing on school. Meet someone within the first 3 months, of course.
Of course you did.
So he was such a huge influence on me as well, just walking alongside me and helping me he didn't see me for the person that I was, the hurt that I had been through. He acknowledged it, he saw it, but he just loved the person that I had become because of it and helped really bring that out of me even more.
The person you became because of it. Again,
Exactly.
this is really good stuff. The person you became because of it's really good.
So he embraced this person because it's easy. It's easy to embrace the old person because that's comfortable.
Okay.
But he didn't know who that was. And so this person that is now me, that I've fallen in love with, now there's someone else that's fallen in love with it too. So yeah, Josh and I met really quickly when I met here. I moved here. We met and dated 3.5 years, got married a few years ago. So yeah, that's been a huge blessing. He's definitely my biggest supporter and keeps cheering me on no matter what.
That's a good thing. It's a really good thing. So now framework is there. You're now working in business.
Yes.
You have the business thing coming along. And let's speak to, again, if someone was having coffee with you today, think about your peers and how you engage folks. Are you finding that you're finally at the stage where you can truly start giving back and helping others? Have you kind of released it enough that you feel comfortable with that now?
Yes, I definitely do. I feel like what's important to remember is despite age, despite part of your career or anything, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got something that's happened to them. And pain and trauma, that's all relative, of course. If the worst thing that's ever happened to me is that I've gone through cancer, that's the worst thing that I've ever had to go through. That doesn't mean, if the worst thing that ever happened to someone else over here is that they got a speeding ticket and, a bunch of other things in the same day, and that was the worst day of their life. Well, that's all relative because that's the worst pain that they've ever felt. So what it's taught me, and I think the reason why I think it's important to share your story and have conversations to encourage people to talk about their experience is that it's important and it's real, and it doesn't matter what age you are we go through experiences, and let's talk about it. And the pain that you feel, yes, it's relative, but it can be transformative if you allow it. Change happens. We encounter change every single day. Some people embrace change. Some people hate change. I'm just kind of someone that change is a good thing if you allow it to be.
So in 5.5 months, you have other change coming?
Yes. And in 5.5 months, I'm welcoming our first baby. Josh and I are.
If you think change is coming your way, talk about out of control. Change is coming. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That's fantastic.
We're excited. We have a boy on the way. So that's going to be a huge change. And so it's kind of remembering change is a good thing when you allow it to be, because change is hard. And so I think if I were having coffee, which I love coffee, so I have coffee all the time.
Okay.
But it's just empowering people at whatever age, whatever season of your life, to be able to talk about what you're going through and to be able to ask questions and figure out what's influencing you. Why do you make the decisions you make? What do you value? Figure those things out, because it helps figure yourself out.
I love that. I love that. Well, listen, you've been an encouragement to me, and I've loved having this conversation. But what if someone really did want to have coffee with Marisa?
Okay.
How would they track you down? How would they contact you?
LinkedIn is great. I will work to be more active on it.
Okay.
I would say LinkedIn. You can email me at my field agent email. So marisa.hoover@fieldagent.net.
Okay.
That's always an option. But really just, I'm happy to have coffee, chat with people. I love making new friends. I love being a mentor. I love being a mentee. So whatever seat someone wants me to sit in, I'm happy to be there.
Oh, that's great. Listen, you've been an encouragement to me today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time, Rick.
All right. Thanks for listening to Push Go, a podcast highlighting the defining moments that really impact how we live and work. It was great to have Field Agent team member Marisa on the podcast today. If you like what you heard, you can find more about stories like this on listen.plumshop.com. And hey, we wouldn't be mad if you left us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to like and subscribe. Now, before you go, we have a quick PS, a little Plum Spotlight here. The weekly segment where I give you a brief update on something happening at Plum. Now, here at Plum, we're all about bringing the e-com shopping experience to retail solutions. You know, making solutions available in just a few clicks. But we get it. Retail, it's not a perfect world, but sometimes you need a personalized solution. Our world-class custom solutions team, Marisa's team, is powered by Field Agent and ready to help you create a solution tailored to your needs. Reach out on plumshop.com and use the code PUSHGO, that's PUSHGO, and you get $100 off any project.